So, welcome to Object-Oriented Programming in Java. This is the very first class meeting, and the class does meet 2 days a week, which is kind of different, but we're only going for 8 weeks. So we're meeting on Mondays and Wednesdays, 5 o'clock. And then in 8 weeks we're done, essentially. You have the rest of the summer to yourself, or you take another class. So some of you are also cross-enrolled in the, and perhaps maybe the ones that, are you guys taking the one that starts in January, July as well? So July 2nd, there's another class. It's, which one is it? It's Object-Oriented Programming in Objective-C. Anybody in that class? Oh, okay, so a lot of you guys are continuing all the way through. That's very good. So if you take the 4 classes, you actually get a separate certificate as well from ITU for mobile device development. There's 4 classes if you are not familiar with this. Object-Oriented Programming in Java, the one you're in. Objective-C, the next one after that. iPhone application development and Android application development. So this term we got Java and we got Android. How many people are also taking the Android course? Ah, perfect. So what I'm going to do is this class and the next class is kind of be commingled a little bit because we have a lot of the same students. We'll run them back to back, which is great, except for today. We have to start today's class at 7:30 because there are some people who may not be registered for this one. And then when I give you the examples and we go through this stuff, I'll orient it for Android. So you don't have to actually, if you're not taking the Android class, don't worry about it. You're not going to learn everything that you're going to learn in the Android class. But the Java programming is the same. So I can kind of commingle the topics a little bit, work them both together. It provides a more interesting environment, I think, actually. So. Okay, so the brand new people, this is for you. Everybody else is going to be bored. Here's what you need to do for this particular class. This is the only thing you got to write down because everything else you can find online. What you're writing down is, in fact, you don't even need that part. It's just www.bhacker.com. Takes you to the course materials for the course, so write that down. I know existing students, you already know this stuff, so. But it's the first day, and we do have new students, so we gotta orient the new students. So bhacker.com. You go here, and what do you see? You see summer 2012. You click on summer 2012, and we see object-oriented programming with Java, which is this class. I click on this one. I'm gonna see old stuff in here. These are old videos. And not really old, they're about a year old or so. I archive everything that I do for the classes, so you guys are actually pretty much at an advantage because not only do you have this term's stuff, but you'll have the previous term stuff and previous term stuff off before that. So if you are really stuck on a particular subject, what I've done is I've carefully labeled each one of these. These are videos, by the way. Each one of the class meetings is recorded and is put out on YouTube, and I put the link in here, so if you miss a class, you can go to the YouTube site, watch the video. What I do is I kind of carefully, put a little description on here. So let's say, for example, you're having problems with a constructor concept. Well, then you can go and see, the word constructors here, or default constructors and stuff like that. So you can go, this is a lecture 4. If you click on the link, it takes you to the YouTube site. There it is. There's lecture number 4. Oops, I'm going to stop that. Go back. So it'll take you direct, or you can just go to the YouTube site. If you go to the YouTube site, it is BJ Hecker. There's a J in there. So it's youtube.com/BJ for Jill, my middle name, Hecker. And you can go directly in here and click on the feeds and go ahead and take a look through, and you can see everything that was recorded from the last term and the previous term and stuff like that. As you also see the current term in there as well. And I'm going to mark the current term so you know it, because every time I give a little slightly different variation of the same lecture, or sometimes I'll cover something in one class that I didn't cover in another. So it's helpful to be able to go backwards. You'll also find in here weekend lectures. You'll also find in here the course materials. I'm going to go over the syllabus in a few minutes. But you're going to find, hopefully you're going to find that in here. So we got the video recordings. Oh, here it is. Down the bottom there's a link that says course materials on it. You'll find all of the assignments for the course in here. and as well as all of the, here's some tutorials I put together, some extra stuff that's not really part of the lecture. Some of it's a PowerPoint based, some of it's not. You'll see the PowerPoint lectures, the actual lectures in here as well. And source code examples. This particular class I put up a lot of examples in here actually. And these are all compilable examples that you can use. And then you'll see more archived lectures actually in here as well. But the URL is the bhacker.com. It's your source for everything you need for the course. This is a website that I use myself. Other instructors might have their own personal website, or they might be using the EMS. So if you go ems.itu.edu, for brand new people may or may not have an account yet. If you go into there, you'll see this system, and this system is where you'll be submitting assignments. So you can get all the work, all the videos and stuff from bhacker.com, but when you get ready to turn something in, you turn it in via the EMS. And the EMS is the central point for all the grading and all of that. You'll find your as soon as you take a couple classes, you'll see your grades and stuff in there as well. So this is ITU's system, which is the official course management system. It's now just currently being set up. If you don't have a login, don't panic, because it takes a couple weeks to get new students signed up normally. And even if you are signed up, unless you're going to turn something in, you're not necessarily going to have to worry about accessing it right now, because you can get everything from the bhacker.com website. Questions about getting the course materials? Nope. Okay, good. And if you do, you can always catch me at the break, or catch me via email, catch me anytime you want. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go over the syllabus, talk about what the course is about, and then get into the first lecture for today. And again, probably go till about 6:30, about an hour and a half, hour. Sometimes, rarely will I take 2 hours, but we don't do any breaks, so if you have to go to the bathroom or if you have a telephone call or something, you just leave, come back. There's also a roster that gets sent around, and you're going to have edits, right? So the TA for the course, if you want to make yourself known, but your TA is sitting in the corner over there with the Dell computer, and she's going to be passing around a roster, correct? So they can sign in, because you want to basically make sure you get on the attendance roster. If you don't, you're going to get these nasty messages from ITU telling you that your student status is in jeopardy, or your OPT is not going to be cleared, or your CPT is going to have issues, or something's going to happen to you because you didn't sign the roster, or maybe you didn't show up to class or something like that. And this particular class does meet 2 times a week, which is kind of new for me as well. It's the first time we've done anything like that here. So, it's not a bad idea to show up for every single class meeting, but I seriously do understand if you miss 1 or 2 of them. If you show up once a week, that's good. If you show up on Mondays and show up on Wednesdays together, that's perfect. But if you only show up 1 of the 2 days, that's okay as well. It's a week-by-week attendance roster. You want to make sure you're on there for at least 50 to 60% of the time. Otherwise, we will have actual issues, serious issues. I don't grade on attendance, and I'll get into that in a few minutes, but attendance is required because you're international students. So let's talk about the course. So what do we got? Object-oriented programming in Java. And what are we going to look at? It's not, hopefully you guys have had some programming experience in some language. Perhaps not object orientation. This class is going to be object orientations from the ground up. It goes a little fast in terms of basic programming concepts. So if this is your absolute very first programming class, you're going to find the pace a bit extreme, especially for 8 weeks. However, it's not impossible, and you can easily pick up everything if you're, changing majors or something like that. This is your very first programming course. It's not impossible to pick it up. It's just, it's going to be pretty fast, and it is a graduate level course, so it's definitely going to cover a lot of stuff real quickly. What are we going to cover? We're going to cover Java as a language. We're going to cover object orientation as a programming concept. In terms of, and the object orientation actually applies to more than one language. It applies to Objective-C, applies to C++. Object orientation is object orientation. So I'll talk about that a little bit today in my first lecture. But the course will definitely focus more on object orientation and object-oriented programming than it will on fundamental Java. But Java's Java. Java's just like C++. Java's just like C, actually. The language itself, the syntax, in fact, there's a lot of differences, a lot of similarities among a lot of different languages. But on Introduction to Java, application versus applet in terms of the concept, not going to really build too many applets. Applets are really not very popular anymore because they take a long time to download. In fact, you know, slowly just fading away. But we will see in this class, we'll see applications built for Android as an example, which is more common these days versus applets. Variables, types, expressions, constructs, languages, strings, all sorts of different miscellaneous topics. File I/O. We'll look at the abstract window toolkit. We'll also look at swing. I'm not sure swing is even in my list here, but we'll look at that briefly. We will look at layouts and events and GUI libraries, threads, synchronization, Java internal sockets, writing server and clients a little bit. In fact, the server and client, we can actually do that on an Android platform. So we don't actually have to worry about not knowing anything about Android, and you certainly don't have to worry about it if you're taking the Android class. However, I'm going to try and hopefully bring in a lot of examples that are kind of crossed with both of the classes. So the learning outcomes, you can go ahead and read through that alone as well. And the textbook. Interesting problem with trying to find a textbook for this class. There's no real, in fact, in my opinion, there's really no good Java textbook out there. In fact, every book you get out there is outdated in a couple months because the SDK keeps changing. The JDK goes from one version to another practically overnight these days with all these different updates, different changes. The fundamentals are the same, and there's a book that I really like, and I'm going to bring up the URL for you. I call it optional. It's not required. Actually, I'll tell you how to find it. It is by Dietel and Dietel. There it is. Type in Dietel. In fact, I'll just leave this up here for anyone who's writing it down. Zoom in a little bit. D-E-I-T-E-L, Dietel and Dietel, are the two authors. I believe that they are related, but I think they're like two brothers. I don't think it's like husband and wife, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. But if you go in, it says Java, how to program. I believe there's like at least, zoom out so you can actually see this. There's probably about 8 or 9 versions of this book out. You don't actually need the current version. In fact, this is not the current version either. The reason why I like this book is not only does it have a lot of good programming examples, and you can download the stuff, even if you don't get the book, you can still download the source code examples, you can still use a lot of tutorial stuff that he offers, but he provides a lot of support, and the book itself is project by project, so there's you'll build an application while you're learning the concepts, which is really nice. It doesn't read like a textbook. It's more entertaining than that. The guy's got a good personality, good sense of humor. It's not a bad book. In fact, I use the same Dietel and Dietel I use for the Android class as well, the book for that class. However, that one's not really required either. But because usually when I require a book, students buy the book. Some people don't use the book. It's kind of, and none of the assignments are out of the book, so you don't have to worry about that. So if you want a good book, Dietel and Dietel, How to Program in Java. Actually, all of his books are good. The Android book is excellent as well. But it is not required, but you might find it helpful. And if you didn't catch that URL, you can always send me an email message and say, what was that book? And I can tell you. So let's see, what are you going to be graded on? So you're not graded on attendance. I already covered that part. Although a lot of people are here, which is really good. You are, this is only 8 weeks long, so before you know it, the class is going to be over with. So it's not like one of those long 15-week terms where, it's like 15 weeks later, It's like, wait a minute, it's gonna be over with before it even starts. It's gonna be really fast. Just warn you ahead of time. We do have a final exam. The final exam will be in class. It'll be during the last week. We don't have a final exam week because of this 8-week schedule. But the next session starts, I believe, July 2nd. So what I'll do is I'll set the due date for everything for this class at the date that the next 8-week session starts. So I believe it does start, let me just check on this real quick here before I misquote you already. Let's see, we mean the itu.edu website. We are looking at July 2nd as the last day, as the last week. So our final exam will probably be on July 2nd. So save that day. You need to show up for that day. Probably be on a Monday or a Wednesday, obviously. Probably do it on a Wednesday, just because a lot of people don't like Mondays. Gives you extra time. And we'll set the, I believe that July 2nd, let me just take a look here at the calendar real quick here. I think July 2nd is a Monday, so it might not be, it might be July 4th is a holiday. So, let's see. It's strategically planned here. Yeah, July 4th is a holiday, so the final exam is not going to be on July 4th. It's a school holiday. So we'll have the exam on the 2nd. We'll be done on July 2nd. And then if you're taking any of the other courses, they start the week after. So strategically, we have that holiday in between. So that's the day of the final exam. That's also the day all assignments and everything are going to be due. So it's an easy day to remember, I guess. Let's revert back. Okay, so let's go back and say, well, what are these assignments you're talking about? All right, so then we got the final exam out of the way. The midterm's a take-home. The midterm is not in class, so you'd be happy to know about that. The final exam that will be in class will be multiple choice. There will be no programming on the final exam. In fact, it's a great opportunity to get 25% of your grade right there. It's not a bad. It would be. I give out notoriously easy exams as well. It's not going to be a huge challenging thing, although you do have to show up for it, and it is part of the course grade, and it's a significant chunk. If you don't take it, you're going to end it with a C or something of that nature, which you don't want. You want to be or above. The midterm you should be able to do. It'll be more of a hands-on, and I'll talk about the midterm probably not for another couple weeks or so. I'll wait till the 4th week, which is for the midterm, about halfway in the middle. The CSLO essay is also due at the end. This is a writing assignment, and I'll go over that halfway in the middle of the course. There's no sense to go over it tonight, but it's going to be like a essay/project type of an assignment. And if you are curious looking at them ahead, you can find them on the bhacker.com website that I showed you earlier. So the midterm is going to be a bunch of questions and more of an application type development, more of hands-on. Final exam is going to be multiple choice. So in order to really learn programming, however, you have to actually kind of practice it. So we have 5 assignments that are worth 5 points each that are the bulk of the learning experience, but it's not really the bulk of the grade. So it's only 25% of the class. However, if you're interested in learning Java programming and object-oriented programming, those assignments is what's really going to teach you that stuff, because each one of them is geared towards the lecture material, and each one of them will go over everything and reinforce all the points and give you some pretty good practical experience. None of the assignments come out of the Doodle and Doodle book. None of the assignments come out of any other textbook. So it's a good opportunity to practice. Academic dishonesty. Seeing a lot actually lately. The new policy, and has been the policy forever, but a lot of people aren't familiar with the academic dishonesty policy. If you turn something in that matches somebody else's work, you get 0 points on it. So if you turn something in that's been recycled, because what's going to end up happening at the end of the term for all the newbies here, I'll just warn you ahead of time, you're going to get a bunch of emails being sent to you from other students in the class requesting assignments. Do you have an assignment for this? Do you have an assignment for that? Because I know they do that, actually, because I've accidentally been included on some of those emails. I don't know how, who would be stupid enough to do that, but I have actually seen the emails. There's also a couple of news groups out there. There's a lot of connection between the students. So don't feel bad if you're not connected, because it's probably a good thing. If you are connected and you see this stuff, ignore it. Because if you use something that everybody else is using, and the people from last term have figured this out. If you took a course with me last term, you got 0. And you come back, oh, can I no, you can't redo it. If you turn in one of these quote-unquote recycled assignments, you know, from the pool of assignments that's going around in circulation, it's a give me. I take 2 seconds, I look at it and go, ah, from the email list. It's a red flag. It's 0. It actually saves me a lot of time in grading because I don't even have to look at it. I already know what's in it. It's been turned in by 20 other students. You know, in fact, last time we had assignments that were turned in from a year ago, and I changed the assignments, and they gave me the wrong assignments. It's like, you know, at least make sure you're giving me the right version of the right assignment, at least. You know, not the old recycled one from a year ago. But long story short, you're not going to get any credit for it. You're going to get 0. If you get a 0 for it, you're not going to get an A in the class. That's a guarantee. In fact, the best grade you're possibly going to get is somewhere between a C and a B. Yeah, B minus, B, C plus, if you're lucky, you know, depending upon what percentage. If you've plagiarized the midterm or the final exam, you're not going to get anything above an F probably. The assignments, this is what ends up getting plagiarized, and this will bring your grade down to about a B, C or a B. Not turning you in. However, that's not necessarily going to be the case in the future. So as we become WASC accredited, as we become more sophisticated, as we become bigger, we definitely, one of the things, and you'll notice this with everybody, is we got to crack down on this. So it's best to do your own work. It's best to turn, even if it's like not half done. In fact, I gave a lot of full credit to stuff that wasn't even compilable, but it was their own work. You know, or it looked like their own work, you know, as an exact copy of something else. So, but don't copy because it doesn't make any sense anyway. It won't get you a passing grade. If you want a passing grade, this is the grading scale to take a look at. And I do give out A minuses. I don't give out A pluses. There's no such thing as an A plus in this school. A plus is 4.0. A is 4.0. Don't ask me for an A plus, you're not going to get one. It doesn't exist. It's the same. A minus, yes. B plus, yes. All this stuff is the same. So what I've got down here on the bottom of the syllabus is the schedule. However, you might notice the schedule is set for 15 weeks. So it's really easy. We just take and have 2 weeks per each 1 week. So Monday's 1 week, Wednesday's another week. So the schedule works week by week instead of, or excuse me, class meeting by class meeting instead of week by week. So for example, tonight we have an introduction object-oriented overview of Java programming. Wednesday we have the object concept, lecture number 2. And so we go, and 8 weeks we'll be done with the 15-week-ish, give or take. Questions about the schedule? Questions about the syllabus? Questions about the optional textbook for the course? No. If you came in really late, actually within the last 10 minutes or so, you missed all the beginning stuff on bhacker.com, so come in after class and I'll go over all that stuff over again. But what I'm going to do now is sort of stop the video unless we have any questions. No? And then I'll start in with the first lecture.